You're listening to the first annual Halloween special from the Warning Woods. This is the final chapter of our story. If you missed the previous 4 parts, be sure to go back and listen to those before starting this episode. If you enjoy the story, please consider writing a review to help spread the podcast to more listeners, and subscribe. Happy Halloween, treasured listeners. We did not see Mr. Wrinkles behind the door. We didn't see Claire either. Cold air from the broken window blasted us as we entered the empty room. It was just as I had left it, except for one horrifying detail. "These are all the pictures I got rid of," Ellie said to herself as she scanned the walls. Claire's bedroom walls were covered in framed photos of various sizes. Some were family portraits, others were of only Ellie and Claire together. A few were just photos of Ellie with her friends or other family members. There were even a few of Claire's drawings. Every image had one thing in common: Ellie. How? I wondered aloud, stepping into the center of the room. Hundreds of Ellie eyes seemed to follow me. I got the uncanny feeling she was watching me from every angle. There was something off about the photos, though. In each one, her eyes were just a little too green. I turned around to face the real Ellie. She hadn't moved from the doorway. Her eyes, her real eyes, met mine with panicked desperation. His hands were on her shoulders. Mr. Wrinkles was standing behind her. All at once, the dozens of photos fell from the walls in a cacophony of clattering wood and shattering glass. A sadistic smile crept across Mr. Wrinkles' ancient face. I immediately understood why Claire had given him that name. He was aged far beyond the condition of an elderly man. The deep lines that covered his skin were marks of an infinite age. His face made him seem as old as time, but he stood tall and strong just the same. An aura of power surrounded him. Power and seething hatred. I saw the already pale skin near Ellie's collarbone grow whiter as the towering man gripped her tighter. His jaw remained in place as the rest of his head tipped back and a whistling moan slithered out of his throat. At the tail end of the moan came the familiar echoey cry, "Daddy!" His head rocked back into place and I saw Mr. Wrinkles' eyes had transformed into hollow portals. Ellie let out a muffled whimper, but I couldn't look away from the 2 swirling lenses in the man's face. I thought, no, I definitely saw Claire where his pupils were just a moment before. Each eye reflected that endless ethereal tunnel, and my daughter was stumbling hopelessly at the end of it. "I'm here, Claire," I shouted in a deep, coarse voice I had never heard come from myself before. The world around me no longer felt real. Every instinct of self-preservation evaporated. Even the immediate danger threatening Ellie faded into the background. All that mattered was the little girl at the end of that tunnel. Then, with a blink, the man's eyes returned. The image of Claire was replaced with a hostile green glare. Ellie collapsed, unconscious. Her limp body was all that stood between me and the malevolent being. His hideous face dared me to make a move. Abandoned by any concern for my own life, I lunged across the room. He didn't flinch. I nearly tripped as something caught my ankle, and the stumble brought me within 6 inches of Mr. Wrinkles. He looked down upon me with those hateful emerald eyes, and a vengeful grimace caused his face to wrinkle even more. "No, Kevin, wait," Ellie groaned. "For what? He has Claire." The venom in my voice did not faze the giant man before me. "He's trapped. He's powerless," she said. The horrible head turned from me to glare at Ellie. Something about the malice it expressed broke through the protective shield I had erected and stabbed an icy cold dagger of fear into me. "He can't hurt you," Ellie continued. "He's here for me. Just me. Claire is part of me, but that's it. Just a part. He needs me. My blood. My flesh. Me. Mr. Wrinkles' grimace morphed into a smile. He tried to step around me as he reached down toward Ellie. I didn't understand how she knew it, but somehow she had connected the dots and unlocked the evil secret, the horrible key to our daughter's return. Without thinking, I dove down and covered Ellie's body with my own. I wrapped my arms around her tightly. "No, you can't have her," I shouted. I felt an unnatural cold wind coming from all around. It seemed we were trapped in the eye of a tornado with death and destruction swirling around us. I kept clinging and shouting, "You can't have her, you can't have her." The relentless wind stole my voice, but my hold on Ellie remained firm. I clutched the fabric of her pajamas and squeezed my arms and legs around her trembling body. Then the gale began to wane. It faded to a whimpering wind, then a gentle breeze. With a final whistle, the room became still again. My arms were still wrapped tightly around the body beneath mine. "Daddy?" I heard Claire's voice ask for me again, but the hollow echo was gone. It sounded clearer, more present. It was coming from underneath me. I opened my eyes to look around. There was no sign of Mr. Wrinkles. I relaxed my arms and sat back on the floor. There she was, Claire. It was her I had been holding. Where Ellie had been just moments before, I now saw my little girl looking fearfully dazed in her disordered bedroom. "Claire," I shouted with relief and drew her close. "Oh, Claire, are you all right?" She sniffled and choked. Her little arms felt so cold. She was shivering or trembling. "He took Mommy away, Daddy. Mr. Wrinkles took Mommy away. My wife, not my ex-wife, that is not the way I think of her now, gave herself up to save our daughter. Any wrong she may have done in the past, any pain she caused, was erased as far as I'm concerned. I've dedicated every waking moment, any time I am not with Claire, to learning the origins of Mr. Wrinkles. I've tracked down that Narcotics Anonymous group where Ellie met the woman she believes started all of this. No one there remembers that woman. I don't know her name, what she looks like, or where she lives. All I know is that I have to find her. I have to force her to help me get Ellie back. I have to make sure at any cost that she stops whatever game she's at. I have to make sure she never sends Mr. Wrinkles after another living soul. This concludes the first annual Halloween special from the Warning Woods. If you haven't already, please subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform to receive scary stories every week from the Warning Woods. If you enjoy the podcast, please write a review. It helps spread the podcast to more listeners. Thank you.